live on the YouTube. All right. Now, let us begin. Today, good morning. Today, we are discussing Avot, chapter 1, Mishnah 6. Now, we're doing chapter 1 today because this Shabbos, Jewish communities around the world, between sort of in the Shabbos afternoon, usually after Mincha, after the afternoon service, are studying one chapter per week. The main custom, as we mentioned, is between Pesach and Shavuos, between Passover and Shavuos. And there's also a custom to continue doing so throughout the summer months. And this week, we're up to chapter 1. So today, Mishnah 6. You ready? Let me put the Mishnah up on the screen. Here you go. Yehoshua ben Parachia Omer. Rabbi Joshua, the son of Parachia, would say, Aseh lecha rav, make for yourself a teacher, ukanei lecha chaver, acquire yourself a friend, v'havei es kol ha'adam lekaf zechut, and judge every person to the side of merit. Fascinating teaching. 3 relationships. The relationship in which I am the receiver, or I am having a relationship with someone who is higher than me. Aseh lecha rav, make for yourself a teacher. Kanei lecha chaver is the relationship of equals. Acquire for yourself a friend. And then there are all of those people who are relating to me as higher than them, or who I see as being beneath me. V'havei es kol ha'adam, and judge every person for the side of merit. And this is somebody who I might judge negatively. Okay? So there are those that I look up to, there are those that I look across to, and there are those that I look down to. And we're going to analyze each of these relationships. And really, by looking at all of these 3 relationships, we summarize, in a sense, the totality of the human social experience, what it means to live in the world, in society. The first teaching, Aseh lecha rav, make for yourself a teacher. In our society today, we don't have such a focus on this idea of teacher. And truthfully, in Judaism as well, a big emphasis is placed on learning and on being an educated person. It's interesting that the same Mishnah I would say the same teaching that the same body of teaching rather, that says how important it is to have a teacher, also requires every person to be studying constantly. A person, it's very common in the Jewish community that a person would study Talmudic topics, and go maybe even study the full rabbinic training, go through rabbinic training, and not practice as a rabbi. Um, it's because there's such a strong emphasis on being a knowledgeable and informed Jew, and therefore um, it's interesting then that the Mishnah says um, that you should have a um, that you should have a teacher, which says, it's not necessarily about um, knowing everything on your own. A you should have somebody else that you turn to. Why is it so important to have a teacher? So there are two reasons. One is what I call the Mr. Miyagi rule. The Mr. Miyagi, Mr. Miyagi from the Karate Kid. Mr. Miyagi comes in and he sees the Karate Kid trying to practice karate moves. And he's holding a book with instructions, an instructional manual on how to do karate. And Mr. Miyagi says, "You don't learn karate from book." And so in that sense also, you don't learn Torah from a book. We need to have not only the text of Torah, the information of Torah, we also need the life experience of Torah, the tradition of Torah. What the living Torah that can only be transmitted in conversation with someone who is connected with the previous generation. We might say that the other reason is because a person is blinded by their self-interest, and they may be influenced by their personal inclinations or desires and not have the kind of clarity that's necessary in order to make the right decision. By the way, this also means that you should have one teacher, one Rav. A person might say, I will consult and ask advice from many people and gather different opinions. So I'll gain from the experience. I'll ask older people, ask younger people, ask people in different fields. But this loses out again in that sense. I am the one synthesizing and aggregating all of the advice that I get, and I'm drawing my own conclusion about what I should do. And the Mishnah is saying that a person really has to have someone, one person, that they have made an authority in their life, so that I am not making decisions based on what feels right to me, but making decisions based on what is right in view of Jewish tradition. And of course, no one is perfect, but in this sense, someone else is more likely to be right than I am. And I think also this is something very different than, it's a little strange, I think, to what's going on currently in Western thought, where everyone has their own truth. And the Mishnah says that you have to have someone who you respect and you treat as objective and wiser, and who will reality check your truth. Certainly, our own truth is changing. We feel different ways, different days. And therefore, it's so important that we form a kind of relationship with a teacher. Now, the interesting thing, if we look at the language of the Mishnah, is that you have to make yourself a teacher, and this addresses a real question about whether leadership is something that we choose or whether it's something that's imposed upon us. And there are good arguments to be made for both. If I choose a leader, then I'm more likely to listen to them, and there's buy-in. On the other hand, if the leadership is imposed, it has more of that objectivity. I might say that if I chose the leader, I can unchoose him or her. I decided to listen to you, and therefore I'm deciding today to not listen to you. So the Mishnah actually chooses to use a very interesting language, saying, Aseh lecha rav, make for yourself a teacher. That is, choose to impose the teacher upon yourself. So make an initial choice because you respect and trust that teacher. But ultimately, once you've made that choice, you should have the relationship with that teacher as though it was imposed upon you. I heard recently a story about the Rebbe spoke a lot about this idea. As the Rebbe got older, he spoke about this idea that everyone should find their own mentor and someone who would give them instruction in their religious, spiritual development. And so I heard the story about one of the eldest Hasidim. This was someone whom, actually the Rebbe said, even I have a mentor. And so this was one of the eldest Hasidim, someone who was highly respected in the community, and perhaps it was even the one who the Rebbe chose as his mentor. And he said, I need to have a mentor. And so he went to one of the Hasidic elders, who incidentally was younger than him, and he said, the Rebbe says that I need to have a mentor. I want you to be my mentor. Would you be my mentor? And this Chassid answered him, it seems to me that you are highly experienced and you've been doing this for many years. I mean, you're good. He says, no, it can't be. And the Rebbe says, I need a mentor. I need a mentor. I want you to be my mentor. So he argued back and forth. He says, okay, fine. You know what? Fine, I'll be your mentor. He says, okay, now give me some advice. Tell me some way in which I can improve my religious observance. Some way in which I can grow spiritually. So this chassid, he says, again, I think you're good. He says, no, a mentor has to tell his acolyte a way in which he can improve. Please tell me a way in which I can improve. And so he says, you know what? Get up an hour earlier to learn before you pray. Now, mind you, this chassid got up every morning at 5 a.m. to learn before he prayed. Meaning this was a matter of his regular practice. He was the first man in shul, and he would always pray. He would always study for an hour before he prayed. He would get up at 5 a.m. His mentor told him that he needed to add an hour and that he needed to get up an hour earlier. The mentor wasn't even aware that he was getting up so early. But from that day on, until the day he passed away, he got up at 4 a.m. He didn't say, Rebbe, I'm already doing that. Give me something else. Aseh lecha rav. He made his mentor, his teacher, he made it imposed upon himself. To the other point around why it is that we need to have a teacher for the purpose of objective thinking, and the necessity to be able to reach outside of our own truth and be able to identify the truth, which, as long as I'm the one making that determination, it's always subject to being influenced incorrectly. So I want to invite you to look at the this Talmudic text. This is from Talmud Ketubot. A man once brought the gift of the first fleece to Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha. Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha was the Kohen Gadol, he was the high priest. This man lived far away. So Rabbi Yishmael said, was there no other Kohen to give, meaning the first fleece, one of the gifts, one of the tithes that we're supposed to give to the Kohen is the gift of the first fleece. And Rabbi Yishmael, so this man came to bring the tithe to Rabbi Yishmael. And since he lived far away, Rabbi Yishmael said, why would you bring it to me? There are many Kohanim in between where you came from and here. Oh, the man replied, I have a court case with you that you're going to be hearing today. And so I thought that since I'll be seeing you in any case, I'll bring it to you. Rabbi Yishmael said, if that's the case, I have to recuse myself from hearing your case. I'm disqualified because you have offered me a bribe. So Rabbi Yishmael appointed 2 other rabbis to judge the case. And he sat on the side listening as the case is being presented. As the person was presenting his arguments, Rabbi Yishmael found himself thinking, maybe he should better say this because his point will be more effective. He could argue his point better this way. And then he realized, you see how corrupting a bribe is, that I didn't accept the gift from him. And even if I had, it would have been something to which I'm entitled. It wasn't a bribe. A bribe is usually somebody gives you money to tell you, judge my case. No, he says he owed me this anyways, or it's something that I could have gotten anyways. And nevertheless, I didn't accept the bribe. It was something that I could have gotten anyways. And nonetheless, I was inclined to think that this is the right, to think in his favor. How much more so if I would accept a bribe. And so this reminds us that when we this should really bring home how important it is for us to focus on having someone in our life who can really give us perspective outside of our own bubble, the bubble of our own worldview. And in this way, we can truly grow spiritually and not just reinforce what we think already. Let's go back to the Mishnah. The second one is Asay K'nei lecha chaver, acquire for yourself a friend. Now, I want to just go for a moment and reflect back to last week's Mishnah, and we talk about the idea of Kenyan, the 5 special relationships that we spoke about that God has in this world. And we mentioned that the word Kenyan is translated as acquisition, as though you purchase something. And we said that that's really a very specific context-based translation, because the word Kenyan is used in the context of marriage, which is why people mistakenly think that the Jewish marriage ceremony is the man purchasing a wife, which couldn't be further from the truth. And here again is another example of that, where we use the word Kenei lecha chaver, acquire for yourself a friend. You don't buy a friend. What you do is form a special relationship with a friend. So Kenyan in some contexts means acquisition, but in the broadest and most inclusive sense, it means build special, unique relationships in which there is something special that only you and this other entity share. So, the value of a friend. I want to share with you a fascinating story from the Talmud Tanit. And here we go. That's not it. Oh no, did I lose it? No, it's still here. There we go. Okay, so all his life, this is a story about a man named Choni Hamagel, Choni the circle maker. All his life, Choni wondered about the meaning of the verse that says in Psalms, when God will bring back the exiles of Zion, we will have been like dreamers. This is referring to the Babylonian exile, or the exile after the first temple, which lasted for 70 years. He says, why would you say that we would be like dreamers? Is it possible for a person to sleep and dream for 70 years? So this is one of the mystical Talmudic teachings. I'm not going to get into the nuances of the symbolism in the story. Just take the story at face value, this mythical story, and we're only going to focus on one aspect of the story today. So, one day he was traveling on the road, and he saw a man planting a carob tree. How long does it take for this tree to bear fruit? The man replied. He asked the man. The man replied, 70 years until a carob tree gives fruit. The person planting the tree was quite old. He said, do you think that you're going to live another 70 years to be able to benefit from these fruits? The man replied, I found carob trees in the world because my ancestors planted them for me, so I too plant them for my children. Choni sat down to eat, and sleep overcame him. A rock formation enclosed him and hid him from sight, and he slept for 70 years. When he awoke, he saw a man gathering fruit from the carob tree. And he asked him, did you plant this tree? The man replied, no, I'm his grandson. Said Choni, I have slept for 70 years. So he gets up after sleeping for 70 years and goes home to his village. And he asks, where is the son of Choni, the circle maker? And he was told, his son is no longer in this world. His grandson is still alive. He said to them, I am Choni, the grandfather, Choni the circle maker. They did not believe him. He went to the study hall, where he heard the scholars saying, the law is as clear to us as in the days of Choni the circle maker, who whenever he came to the study hall would settle for the scholars any difficulty that they had. Choni, standing there, hearing himself being referred to, said, "That's me." They did not believe him. And so here we have a person who has his grandchildren. He's able to see nachas from those he has uh, brought into the world, and he sees the good work that he's done. But that grandson doesn't recognize him. And then he goes to the study hall, and he has nachas again, and he sees people who are referring to him as a great scholar and referring to his wisdom and being grateful for his teaching, but they don't recognize him. There's no reciprocity in the relationship. And so Choni was disheartened and prayed for death, and he died. Said Rava, this is the meaning of the famous proverb, O chavruta, O mituta, either friendship or death. And I find this story fascinating on so many levels, but just to focus on this, Choni had everything that a person could want. He had grandchildren. He had made a mark in the world, but those people didn't recognize him, and he didn't have the back and forth relationship of equals. And this, he said, is the key to life itself. What it means to live in this world is to be able to have someone else know you and to see you as special. Not that just that you can see that you have been special to them, but that you can receive that back from them. And this is, in a sense, the very essence of life.
Rabbi?
Yes, sir.
Uh, I just feel that the fact that he knows he had that effect on the generations to come and that he did earn the respect would be enough so that he wouldn't ask for death and not even recognition, because it's in his mind and his heart that he did make that impact.
Right.
Just to know that he did it, wouldn't that be enough?
Right. And I think that the way I understand this is that actually that is death. That's the definition of death. Because after we die, our tradition tells us after we die, we are able to see our descendants. We're able to see our family. And we're able to watch people who were inspired by us follow in our example. That's, in a sense, the value of saying Kaddish, is that we're giving nachas to our parents by praying in their memory. And so they look from heaven and they see how we are praying a prayer that we wouldn't otherwise have said, and they have nachas from that. And so it's, in a sense, they are exactly in that position as Choni, where they are watching, but they are invisible. And one way of looking at it is in the words of King Solomon, a man without a friend is like left with no right. And Rabbeinu Yonah interprets this statement by King Solomon to say that this is all about balance and counterbalance. That in order for us to improve in life, we have to have someone who will tell us the truth about ourselves. And so in a sense, the difference between life and death is not pleasure and pain, because this idea that after we die we have no more pain anymore, again, Judaism teaches that there is psychological and spiritual pain that happens after death. It's called hell, right? Gehenna, or kafakela chibutakever, purgatory, that we go through trauma after death. One person who was contemplating suicide told the Rebbe that he was thinking of killing himself, and the Rebbe said, "Why do you think it's going to be better after you die?" So, dying after death is not about pleasure or pain; it's about continued growth. It's about the ability to continue to improve yourself. And for this, you have to have a good friend. And for this, you need to not only see that you're accomplishing, but you need to have somebody see you in turn and give you feedback on yourself as an equal. And to have that kind of back and forth relationship, that reciprocal relationship in which you support each other and help each other and encourage each other. Rambam says that there are three kinds of friends. There is a friend for benefit, a friend for enjoyment, and a friend for virtue. The friend for benefit is a partner, a business partner. There is a transactional relationship between the two. I am interested in you as a friend only because of what you give me. And you are interested in turn because of what I give you. And so that is a friendship of convenience. Then there's the friendship for benefit, for enjoyment. And that is someone who I enjoy their company. This, Rambam says, is like the friendship between a man and a woman. The love between a man and a woman, he says, is someone who we enjoy the company of the other. And so it's not so much that the person is doing something for me, but I actually enjoy their company. But ultimately, there's still an element of selfishness there. I like the way you make me feel, but I still like you because the way you make me feel. And then there is taking that to another level, he says, is the friendship of, there's a higher level in the friendship of enjoyment, which is a friendship with benefits, is the friendship of security, in which I have a confidant, someone who I can tell anything to and know that they're not going to criticize me, a trust relationship. Even there, he says, where I know that I trust this person completely, and I know that they're going to not judge me, and I can really confide in any way, and I never have to hide anything from them. This is also still a level of enjoyment. I have a need to be safe, and this is a relationship in which I feel safe. The highest level of friendship, says Rambam, is the friendship of virtue. And that, he says, is reflects Aristotle's statement, the friend is one, where we both want the same thing. And that is that in this relationship, I am concerned for your betterment, and you are concerned for my betterment. It's the selfless relationship in which we both want the same thing, and that is the improvement of the other. And in that kind of relationship, there's no selfishness, and it's possible to have true friendship, a friendship of oneness, true unity in the relationship, because there's no self here. And this is the Kenyan, the ultimate acquisition that a person can have, the formation of this most special relationship in which I am concerned for you and you are concerned for me. And this is, again, a relationship of equals. It's not imposed. Obviously, the different than the relationship of a teacher, in which it's imposed. The relationship of a friend is much more mutual. It's two ways. And this, again, is life itself, because it fosters what life is, which is growth. And it also represents um, the the zest for life, the social connection that we need, but on the highest level. And truly, on a scientific level, uh, loneliness is one of the most dangerous conditions that a person can have. Studies show that people who are lonely suffer from all illnesses, both physical and psychiatric, to a greater degree than people who are not lonely. O chavruta, o mituta, friendship or death. And so this is something, now, going back to the word Kenyan, which we said means acquisition, and does have this association with the term of with the term of transaction or a purchase. In that sense, we would say that this is a relationship for which you have to sacrifice. You are going to be paying into this relationship and be receiving something in return. Not purchasing, but even that special relationship is not something that happens by itself. It's something that has to be paid into. And again, there are three ways in which this can work. Either we have a business partnership in which it's a pure transaction. I'm giving and you're giving back. And I'm not interested in you. I'm only interested in what you give me. There could be a pleasure relationship in which I'm interested in you, but really it's more about what you give me. And in order to get something from you, in order to enjoy you, I'm going to need to make myself available to you. Still transactional. There's the idea of trust, which again, trust is usually mutual. But the highest form here is in which I am completely, the payment that I'm putting into this relationship is that I am completely invested in your growth and completely selfless in this relationship. And in turn, that opens up a channel so that you could be completely invested in my growth. And that's a selfless transaction. Kenyan, acquisition, special relationship. Let's go to the third aspect of the Mishnah. Hevedan et kol ha'adam lekaf zchut. Judge every person to the side of merit. Now, something about judging everyone to the side of merit is very popular today. Today we say, don't judge. This Mishnah doesn't say don't judge anyone. It says quite the contrary. Judge everyone. Judge them for the side of merit. So there is a kind of, this Mishnah teaching suggests then that rather than have a standoff approach in which we say, everyone is good, I don't judge. Instead, he says, have a proactive, assertive approach in which you actively try to judge somebody else and see the positive. And this requires insight and work and effort. The previous Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak of Lubavitch, after whom I'm named, by the way, told the following story. He said, when I was 4 years old, I asked my father, why did God make people with two eyes, Why not just one eye? We have one nose, we have one mouth. So he says that my father answered, said the Rebbe, that there are times when we need to use our right eye and times when we need to use our left eye. When we look at another person, we need to look with the right eye, with affection and empathy. When we look at ourselves, we need to look with the left eye, with a critical left eye. But the word judge them for the side of merit says that not only should we try and make excuses for them, but that we should really, when we are inclined to judge them negatively, that negative thing that we see, that very negative quality that we're judging negatively, we should actually be able to see something positive therein. And I think that's a very powerful statement. The way we can understand this possibly is based on the Talmudic statement elsewhere that says that Kol hagodol mechavero yitzro gadol hemen. Whoever is on a higher spiritual level than their fellow has a greater evil inclination than their fellow. That is, when we see someone who is experiencing significant setbacks or challenges in their life, we have to recognize that this is someone with a very high spiritual soul, who is spiritually on a very high level. And to recognize that this very thing that we're judging them about is actually evidence of a deep conflict that they're experiencing because they're operating at a very high level. I want to tell you a personal story that happened to me this week. I went with my son to a government office, and we had some transaction to take care of. And the person behind the desk initially, I don't know, they weren't as helpful as I would have liked. You know, sometimes bureaucrats, they weren't as helpful as I would have liked. And my initial reaction was, he's ignorant. This person is ignorant. They don't know. They don't know what they're talking about. And I'm going to forgive them their ignorance. And then the person reached up to pick up the paper that I was handing them. And I saw on their arm a long scar going up their arm. And then I looked at the other arm and I saw a long scar going up the other arm. And I don't know, I didn't say anything to them. But what immediately came to mind is that this is a mental health survivor. This is a person who struggled with suicide and attempted suicide. And today is doing that well that they're able to hold down a job and be generally polite and functional. All right, so they didn't handle my case with the expedience that I would have liked in the moment. But this person is a hero, having overcome the most crippling and painful demons that a person could face. And in that moment, my entire perspective changed. Have done as kol adam lekavskos, judge every person positively. A good friend of mine said, he's a rabbi on a college campus, and he said that in his experience, everyone is showing up a little bit better than you'd think they would. If you would know what they're going through, you would be surprised at how well they're doing. And the truth is, as I think about it, that's been my experience as well. As I get to know people and people have confided in me about their lives, I realized that generally what other people are judging us about are often the very thing that are often the very thing that is a sign of their strength. And so if we see somebody who is struggling, who is not doing as well as we'd like, we should realize that this is actually a sign that they are a survivor, they're a fighter, and they're doing the very best that they can. So, to summarize, Aseh l'charav, choose for yourself someone who will be an authority in your life so that you can really be connected with tradition and the truth in a real way. Make a powerful, committed, singular relationship with other people so that you are completely selfless in your giving, and in turn, they will be completely selfless in what they give you back. And when you look at someone and find yourself judging them negatively, look at that very negativity that you've identified and recognize that this is a person who is struggling and fighting, and that for this, they deserve credit. Thanks for joining us. Any questions, comments, or thoughts?
Rabbi, you mentioned the different kinds of friendship. I feel that I have found all of those 4 different kinds in one friendship. I also want to say that if anyone wants to meet Hashem, I met him Friday. I had this very bad fall, and the doctor said to me yesterday he never had a patient my age acquire such injuries and not break any bones. I think
Wow.
Hashem, if any time I felt that he was with me that day. I'm very grateful for that. And he's my best friend.
God bless you.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing, Esther.
Thank you, Rabbi Mendelson. It was a beautiful shiur.
Anyone else?
Thank
you. You're welcome, Jane.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So giving everyone the kaf zchut. Some people are Rashas, right? Rasha, the evil person.
Yep.
They run to do evil. Certain people like that, you know? So sometimes you have to stay away from people like that, I think.
Yes. This doesn't. Remember, there's French. It doesn't say be friends with the wicked people, right? You have to choose for yourself one friend, and obviously,
Right.
choose yourself one friend.
Yeah.
But when you look at somebody, even a wicked person, you can see their positive potential, and you can see merit that this is a person who either is struggling or who has incredible spiritual potential, and for this, we should honor them and respect them. Not judge them again. Judge them favorably. Not necessarily say that what they're doing is okay, but judge the person favorably, and this should apply to all people. Okay. Thank you for joining us. I have to run.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Looking forward
Rabbi Mendelson?
to next week.
Rabbi Mendelson?
Yes, ma'am.
The Chafetz Chaim puts out a magnet that says